Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So, in our previous class, we were discussing the threefold classification, the threefold division according to Vedanta. The first division is the first aspect of human personality is the Sthula Sharira or the gross body. The second one is subtle body. So we are supposed to discuss what the subtle body is. This concept of subtle body is unique. It explains how the gross body functions in Vedanta. So to understand the human possibilities, the possibilities are not just physical, neither are they just mental or intellectual. They are also aesthetic, not atheistic, aesthetic. And we have many other faculties which we explore as we consider the higher and higher aspects of our personality. So the human possibilities are discovered as we understand the subtle forces that animate our physical body. Physical body, of course, life forces, medical science has clearly shown that it is the basic life forces which Vedanta divides into five, the five pranas, the five life forces, vital forces, which are required to, which have been given the name prana, apana, vyana, udana, and samana. We have discussed this in great detail. I'm not discussing it again. So these are the five subtle forces which are responsible for our breathing, for the circulation of blood, for digestion, and all the other functions, including the nervous energy, which has to be circulated in our physical body so that it functions in a proper way. So any imbalance in these pranas will result in not being able to make full use of our physical body, to even make full use of our physical body and explore all its possibilities. The pranas are important. So apart from the physical role, the role they play in harmonizing or exploring the possibilities of the physical body, which is also known as Sthula Sharira, it has an impact on the mind and other functions, other subtle functions of the human personality. That is what we are going to discuss today. So, according to Vedanta, the Sukshma Sharira or the subtle body, which is more subtle than the physical body, it cannot be seen as we see the physical body, as we explore the physical body. We can use microscopes and all sorts of equipment. Though we are able to, through ECG and many other modern devices, medical equipment, we can have some idea of the life forces that animate the human body. But beyond that, uh, to analyze, even the mental waves can be like EEG. There is a device known as EEG, which can give you the nervous reactions or maybe the nervous forces that impact the brain. See, one thing we have to remember that in Vedanta, the Vyana Vayu or the nervous energy uses the brain as an instrument. It by itself, brain is dead matter. Though we call it white matter, gray matter, there are so many things in the brain, but by itself, without the help of this prana, which is known as Vyana, which in modern terminology is known as the nervous energy, without those nerve currents, our brain is not able to function. So, which can be demonstrated when a person, his pranas are not active. That means he is in coma. though the autonomous system somehow manages to carry out the other functions, his cognitive functions and other functions are apparently not functioning properly. That is when the person, and we say he is unconscious. So, what imparts consciousness to the physical body, Sthula Sharira, is this Sukshma aspect of the human body, which is also known as, it has different names. It is also known as Linga Sharira. But the popular term that is used is Sukshma. Sukshma means subtle, subtle body. The literal translation is it's subtle. So, what is that subtle body made up of? There are many things. There are 17 different aspects of the subtle body which we need to understand. The five pranas we have discussed in great detail: prana, apana, vyana, udana, and samana. Now, according to Vedanta, there are 10 organs, the five organs of senses, and the five organs of action. They are known as Gyanendriyas and Karmendriyas. The words are very simple to understand. Gyanendriyas means the cognitive faculty, the different aspects of the human body. I'm not speaking to the organs as such. The force behind the organ is something different. For example, we have eyes. We may be observing certain things, but if we are absent-minded, if the mind is not connected or the subtle senses are not conveying that information to the mind and the intellect, according to Vedanta, the subtle senses are not active. A person may be seeing physically, the light is reflected on his retina and everything is happening, but he is not able to register that because he is absent-minded. His mind is somewhere else. So Vedanta says mind is also, you may call it a subtle sense organ, more subtle than the 10 senses, because it's the mind which recognizes all the inputs. The inputs, that is the five visible organs, are the ears, the skin, the eyes, the palate, that is taste, and the nose. These are the five senses which are known as Gyanendriyas. But the subtle body is not constituted of the physical eye or the physical ear or the physical tongue, touch, skin, and smell or nose. So all these things are they are part of the sthula sharira or the gross body, but the subtle body has its equivalent, and these 10, the real organs, they belong to the subtle body. That is why they say according to Vedanta, when the subtle body leaves the gross body, it carries the impressions, all the impressions it has accumulated over several lives, because we believe in rebirth. And that alone explains why some people are born with certain talents. They have exceptionally highly developed musical talents, or there are many talents, visual, they have exceptional visual capacities. They become good painters. They can become good architects. They are better than others because that particular sense organ, which is responsible for the eye and which is part of the subtle body, has been more developed. And he is born, genetically, he may be born of parents. He may inherit all the genetic characteristics of his parents. But depending on the subtle senses, that the impressions that have been stored in the subtle senses, that is carried from birth to birth. When we come to the concept of reincarnation, or the chapter on reincarnation, which we will discuss afterwards, we will discuss this in great detail. But let us now try to know what this subtle body is. So there are 17 different components of this subtle body. So as I said, the five pranas. Pranas are vital forces. They are understood only with reference to the physical body. Normally, if they are not acting upon the human body, we do not recognize them. But prana doesn't only impact the physical body, it impacts the mind. on the other side, which is a finer sense organ. Then in some of the Vedantic texts, they even consider the that is the reactive mind, which is known as manas, as one of the indriyas. That's why they say there are not 10 indriyas, but there are 11. Mind is considered to be the 11th, because without that, no perception is possible. Now, after having the perception of these different, that is touch, hearing, sight, taste, and smell, there are 5 motor organs which are known as karmendriyas. So though they have their physical counterparts, that is the tongue, the hands, the feet, the organ of excretion and the organ of reproduction, all these things, they are the 5 organs through which we conduct activity based on the information that is gathered through Gyanendriya. It's a very scientific way of understanding the human personality and also trying to understand what this subtle body is. Because unless there is this perception, there is no reaction. Every action presupposes a reaction, and that reaction is the impact that is created by the inputs that we get through our organs. Mind you, it is through our organs. It goes to the subtle senses, which is part of the Sukshma Sharira. So we have to make a very clear distinction that, because the question may be asked, what happens if the body dies? He has all the organs, but somehow they are not functioning because the prana has left. All the 5 pranas, even if there is an imbalance and one prana doesn't function, for example, there is a spinal injury, it will impact so many perceptions. You may not register, person may go into coma. Only some of the functions, primary functions which keep the patient alive, they will function. The heart will beat because they are involuntary. They are a different kind of, it requires a different kind of nervous energy. So the prana is not totally gone. Prana is still there. That is why the person survives. Nowadays, we have this equipment which can keep a person artificially alive, the artificial heart-lung machine. And they can even wait and see if the subtle body can be somehow connected back to the gross body, which is like practically lying dead. But science has advanced so much that they try to create this breathing, the one of the pranas which is breathing, and the circulation, with the hope that the other pranas will somehow revive and the patient may be revived. The physical body of the patient may be revived. So artificially we can do to a certain extent. These pranas can be replicated in the physical universe. That is, we can have equipment for that. But basically, all the 5 pranas, unless they work harmoniously, a person will not be normal. He may be in coma, he may somehow survive like a vegetable without any the sense organs active. So on one side, the subtle body, or the subtle body which is made of these 5 pranas, which are the grossest things in this whole in this subtle body. I was talking of 17 components. The first 5 components, which are the 5 pranas, they are the grossest. They are the nearest to the body. Then we have as I said, the 10 organs, 5 organs, the subtle organs, I mean, not the physical organs. So when I say I, it is the subtle organ, the perception that takes place, and the knowledge is presented before the brain, and the brain tries to make coherently rearrange, or maybe try to find out how it can react to all the inputs that it gets. It is a very subtle mechanism where all the different hearing, sight, smell, many things are presented to the brain. But what sense does it make of those inputs? And how does it instruct the karmendriyas to react? So whenever the sense of touch, for example, So if there is a hot iron rod and you just touch it, you don't have to tell, the brain doesn't have to tell that you have to remove. Immediately, by instinct, the hand just comes off because it burns the physical body. So it's not that there are many involuntary actions also, which are mixed up with the conscious actions. So there are many involuntary actions, which is part of our nervous system, which is handled by these pranas. But at the same time, there are many voluntary actions. For example, if a mosquito bites, you may instinctively try to kill it. Or if you are very conscious and you just want to see what the mosquito, what that bite is like, you may even prefer not to react. So that faculty, whether to react or not to react, is a special faculty, which is one more addition to this 70. I mentioned the 17 aspects or 17 components of the subtle body. So first we have the five pranas, the five vital forces, five organs of jnana, organs of perception, five organs of action. Then we have the mind. So 10 plus 5, that is 16. 10 plus 5 plus 1, mind. And the 17th is known as buddhi. That is also an aspect of the mind, but it is more subtle than the mind, which decides whether you should act or not. The mind, the reactive mind, will simply, like we find in the primitives, the animals, they just react to external stimulus. Whatever stimulus comes through their gyanendriyas, they also have these sense organs, the physical sense organs and the subtle sense organs behind it. But they are so intimately connected that as soon as the senses give certain information, the animals immediately react instinctively without pausing or without even, it's known as the reactive mind. That is why manas is known as the reactive mind. But as the human being evolves, he develops there is one more aspect of the mind which Vedanta says is the buddhi. So the buddhi decides how it should react. It doesn't react immediately. It decides whether I should react, or if I react, how should I react, when should I react. This delay or this deliberative action, through deliberation, we can control the functions of our gyanendriyas and pranendriyas. So there are this, you may say the buddhi has two major functions. If I just try to simplify it, buddhi is a very complex idea, because people normally don't distinguish between manas and buddhi. Our mind, according to Vedanta, has two distinctive functions. One is the higher aspect of the mind, which controls the lower aspect. So the twofold function, if you simplify it, buddhi has many functions, but the twofold function is, first is deliberation, to think, and determination, or taking a decision. Or to put it very simple, it is the choice-making capacity that a human mind has. So as I said very often, what role does buddhi play in developing our human possibilities? The importance of development of this buddhi, or the higher faculty of the mind in spiritual life, through a certain discipline, is very important, because it helps you to make choices. And though we do not give so much importance, we think choice making is something which is very automatic. It's not automatic. It has to be cultivated. Every child, or every human being, why child? When child learns to make choices depending on how he is trained by his teachers, by his peers, by his parents, and the society around him. So he makes right or wrong choices according to the development of his buddhi. That is what Vedanta says. So a well-developed buddhi is necessary to make the right choice at the right time, so that we don't suffer. Recently, I came across a lady, a nurse in Australia, I forgot the name. She wrote a book based on her experience. She was working in a care home where people with terminal illnesses would be admitted there, and she had to take care of those patients, be very kind and considerate, because most of them had hardly 10 to 15 days to live. So she selected those people because she was very curious to know. So she used to ask questions. The whole name of the book is Regrets. The name of the book is very short. The name of the book is Regrets. So she thought of a novel idea. Let us ask, because you see, when you see people dying before you, especially in their last days, when they know some terminal illness, they know it's just a question of 10 or 15 days. And they are practically prepared themselves, the doctors, if they have told them, they all know, they are conscious of what is going to happen. So this terminal illness made them, this nurse asked them a fundamental question. Is there any regret in your life? It's a detailed study made based on thousands of patients she has interviewed, who in the last days of their life told her, because they had nothing to hide, most of them were honest. But based on what answers they gave, she said, these are the 5 topmost answers which I got from them. And for the answer which most of the patients gave, irrespective of their spiritual background, was that I wish I had made a wrong choice, and I wish I had decided to do something which was after my heart. Unfortunately, circumstances forced me to do otherwise. So one of their main regrets in life was we could not do what we really wanted to do in life. So that shows, even for a dying person, the only regret he has, at least there are other regrets also, many other regrets. You can read that book. I can even share the name of the book and the author. It is a bestseller because it has some very interesting insights which support what we are saying. It just crossed my mind, so I'm just mentioning this fact. So one of them, as I said, the topmost regret which almost everyone expressed is that we should have done something. We could not do what we really wanted to do. Maybe they realized what they really wanted to do when it was too late. So they could not change their choices. So choices are very important. In fact, when I was in India, we prepared a nice book for young students, high school students, which was designed in such a way. It's known as the power of making choices. So there's a tree of choice. So it branches out, and then they are asked to just go through that tool, that kit, where they are asked to make choices. And then they find that once they make a wrong choice, they choose the wrong branch, the tree of choices. That is how it was designed. So even mathematics is studied like that. If you see the whole of abstract mathematics, it is like even the computers run on that principle. Yes or no. It's something which makes the right choice at the right time. And what happens if you make the wrong choice? If you catch hold of the wrong branch and then you end up somewhere, it will take you to a position from where there is no coming back. You are lost forever. So to caution the children that you have to be very careful. Every minute we use this deliberative or decision-making capacity, which is known as buddhi. It is so important that on a daily basis or on a minute-by-minute basis, our choice making impacts our life. That is what our spirituality says. Because these 17 components, as I said, pranas also will function according to the choices we make. For example, if you make a choice that I should do this exercise or I should do some walking every day, and you stick to that right choice, then definitely your prana, your breathing, your health, everything is fine. But out of laziness, we make the wrong choice and say, okay, maybe not this time, maybe tomorrow. So, the choice making is so important even for physical fitness. So, what about the other characteristics? So, there are these 17 components of the subtle body, as I said. To recapitulate, they are the five forces, vital forces, which are known as pranas. The word pranayama has come from that. So it is one of the forces that we control by which, because all these pranas are connected to each other. So when we breathe deeply, the yogis found, or the Vedantists found, that by controlling one of these pranas, you can more or less have some control over other pranas. People don't understand that there are five pranas, but the only pranayama that we do, we think, is by controlling our breath, which is 1/5 of the whole pranayama. It is the other four pranas also which are impacted. Obviously, because this is very easy to do, we can control the only prana that we can control easily is our breath. We can choose how to breathe, how fast to breathe, how slow, what sequence, how should we breathe. So the yogis found a connection between the way you breathe. For example, in Swami Vivekananda's Raj Yoga, he says, the animals that breathe very quickly, who breathe, who have, say, a very high rate of breath, who breathe very fast, like the dogs, they have a shorter life. And the slower the breath, the slower you are breathing. It's a very simple observation Vivekananda has made in his Raj Yoga. They have a longer life. For example, tortoises, they live for 250 years. The elephants, their breathing is very slow. So if you extend it to human beings also, why these people with long life, they practice pranayama? One of the benefits of pranayama, though that is not the only benefit, the idea behind pranayama is to control the other pranas with the help of breath. Whereas if you stick to only one prana and try to focus, then you may have a long life, but whether it will be useful or not, that will depend on how you use the other pranas, how the other pranas are impacted. And not only the other pranas, but the mind, the buddhi, there are these 17 components we have to take care of the subtle body, which will impact the way we will live, the way we will die, and the way we will be reborn. Because they say, since they are composed of rudimentary or elements which are extremely fine and subtle, they are not destroyed by the destruction of the gross body. That explains how we can say that there is life beyond death. So it may be subtle, it may not be perceived by all of us, but the subtle body continues to exist according to Vedanta. And it is that same subtle body, based on the characteristics or based on the inputs, the gross body is left behind when the subtle the subtle body is left behind when the gross body is destroyed, and it endures. They say, according to the Brahma Sutras, I'll say, it says the subtle body continues till final liberation. The realization of the jivas, the soul's oneness with Brahman through knowledge, that is the only way you can prevent transmigration. Because the scriptures declare that the continuance of the transmigratory state is there as long as you have the subtle body in some form or the other. So throughout this period, the jiva's gross body, the choosing of the gross body in its next birth will depend on its subtle body. The condition, that's why Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that whatever you do, whatever spiritual development you do, whatever changes you make in the subtle world, especially the mind and the buddhi, which is more subtle than the senses, they will be carried on to the next birth. That will not be lost. It will be not be lost as we lose everything in the gross world. We gain a lot of wealth, we gain a lot of property, but then it is common sense that we don't carry those things. Though the Egyptians believed when the pharaohs died, the kings died, they buried all the dear and the things that were dear to them. You'll find the mummies there. They will have all the wealth that they, with the hope that in the netherworld they will enjoy all these things. So everything was buried, and a pyramid was built if they could afford. The kings, of course, the pharaohs could afford that. So that was the idea, that we don't want to part with the gross things that we have achieved. But it is common sense that we can't take these gross things with us after death. But that's not the case with the subtle body. Those impressions, because they are subtle, till the body is liberated, the impact or the impressions that are created on the subtle body, the 17 elements, the 5 pranas, the 10 organs, subtle organs, which survive the, I'm not talking of the gross organs, which will be destroyed, which will be cremated, which will be burnt, buried after the body dies. But the subtle elements, the impact it has created on the subtle, that continues to exist even after death. And with that subtle body, it chooses a body where it can work out. So that is why they say in Vedanta that the parents are chosen by the jiva. It's not that the parents choose. Parents may give the child a physical body, but you can't just dictate how the child will be. He is what he is, or he will be what he or she will be because of his karma or her karma. The impressions which it carries from birth to birth as it evolves. So there is an evolution also. It is not that anything that a jiva does is lost. According to Vedanta, it is carried from birth to birth. That is why Krishna is assuring Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, because he puts this question. He sees that all these achievements, the victory that he will perhaps, after defeating the Kauravas, the empire that he will inherit, he just gets a thought that just as I have to leave behind everything, no doubt I'll win. If I win the war, I'll enjoy the whole empire and everything. But just as when I die, I have to leave things behind. He asks Sri Krishna a very fundamental question. All these spiritual practices, all these things that impact the subtle body, or whatever I do so that the subtle body evolves, will it also be left behind? What will happen to those that effort? Just as the effort that has gone behind the accumulation of wealth, property, and other things, just goes waste when the person dies. Maybe somebody else enjoys, but he is definitely not going to enjoy the benefit of that. So a doubt comes to Arjuna's mind whether what happens to the subtle body. That is exactly what Nachiketa asked Yama. So he says, I don't know, you are the king of death, you are the god of death. So you tell me what happens. Some people say the subtle body survives the gross body and it continues its transmigratory existence. And some say everything is destroyed with the destruction of the subtle body. There are materialistic views also. The materialists who believe that as long as it's like blowing, one great neurologist says, we don't believe in rebirth and we don't believe in the subtle existence. Then he gives an explanation that suppose there is a lamp and somebody comes and blows off that lamp. It will no longer burn. The candle will remain. It's not alive. So also prana, if it goes, it's just like blowing that lamp. The candle will remain, but the lamp will not fulfill its function. So their explanation is very simplistic. that all the effort, that means all the effort that you do, all the hard work that you do, all the religion that you follow, all the faith that you have developed over years, everything will be blown off like the flame of a lamp. Things are not as simple as that. In that case, people will be uh, fatalistic, or they will think that everything happens by chance. It's like God is playing dice. There's a famous philosopher who said, God plays dice. I mean, that is how he creates. That is why how he decides one person will live long, another person. It's not a game of chance. According to Vedanta, it is a foolish argument to say that God is so whimsical. Then what's the use of such a God? If he is whimsical and if he makes one person suffer, another person just enjoy out of his own sweet will, then there's no point in worshipping such a God. Because we need God to evolve ourselves. That is what Vedanta says. God is not somebody who is in the universe somewhere sitting in the clouds or somewhere. He is guiding our destinies from within. That means we are the makers of our own destiny. So we can make or unmake our destinies. We can decide. That is how this cause and effect, as science says. That way, science is more honest. It says if there is an effect, there has to be a cause. That is exactly what Vedanta says. There may be a subtle cause. You may not see it in the gross, but definitely they are trying to explain this, that the fact that somebody is born with wonderful possibilities and somebody is suffering all his life, that is not what a just God will do. The just God will say that it is your own karma that has, or your own causes that were responsible. The evolution that was responsible for what you did with your gross body, with your subtle body, in the causal body that is decided. So, there is one more thing which we have to say, that the jiva's body is renewed according to, this is a fundamental law, according to the fructification of his karma. All the causes put together, they are stored in this subtle body. That is what they say. And the same subtle body continues its journey onward, and it continues to accumulate. The causes lead to effects, the effects then lead to further causes. But the fact that what happens to the prana, that is the idea now. So they say the last thing that leaves, according to Vedanta, this is it's not just an hypothesis. This is an observed fact, that the last thing that the udana vayu, or the bodily heat, which is generated by prana, it is connected to our breathing. But even if the breathing stops, there is this one prana which remains till the end. If you remember Sri Ramakrishna's life, the Kaviraj who used to, because when he went into different states of trance, practically for all practical purposes, everything stopped. Even the heartbeat stopped. That Dr. Sarkar was surprised, because he deliberately waited and then he tried to find the heartbeat. None of the pranas were active. There was no breathing for several minutes, and it was something which he could not believe, because he's seeing in before his eyes. He goes, even touches Sri Ramakrishna's eyes and just sees that the pupils don't dilate. So even those functions, the involuntary functions, also had stopped. So scientifically he wanted to know, because he was the one who established a society in those days. He thought religion is something which should be detested. And he had so much faith in science, he started an association for young Indians, which is known as Indian Association for Cultivation of Sciences. So he believed that if we follow the scientific method, the same method which is used in medical science, in physics, chemistry, and all the empirical sciences which have done such wonderful work, he believed that this science, this study of the sciences should be cultivated. And he had a very poor opinion about religion. The only reason why he came to Sri Ramakrishna is to treat him as a homeopathic doctor. Of course, he was an allopathic doctor, one of the famous doctors in those days. But at the same time, he was curious. He wanted to see how can medically this is not possible. Then he found there was an Ayurvedic doctor, and whenever Sri Ramakrishna went into Samadhi, they were not sure whether he's alive or dead. Practically, medically, everybody would have declared him to be dead. Because no prana was functioning, not even breath, everything stopped. Then the Ayurvedic doctor, even on the last day, that is when he actually took Mahasamadhi, he also was called that Ayurvedic doctor. Because they knew that the last thing that leaves the human body is the heat or udana. Udana is the prana which is responsible for maintaining the body heat at a particular temperature. So if that leaves, they say the patient is dead. So what he used to do is, he used to, normally they say the temperature could be felt. The whole body became cold. But he used to take some fine ghee, that is what they did, clarified butter, and he applied it on the head and then rubbed it so vigorously that he by feeling the heat, he could say, no, he's still alive. He can be revived. Because that is how the Ayurvedic doctors declared a person dead. He said, no, you don't have to worry. He will come back but when he actually went into Mahasamadhi, even in spite of doing that, they could not feel any heat. So he then declared that Sri Ramakrishna has now entered into Mahasamadhi because that Udana Vayu leaves. So the bodily heat, Brahma Sutras 4 to 11 says this. He says, the last thing that leaves the body is the Udana Vayu. Body is warm indeed as long as it lives and cold when it dies. So in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, when all physical functions and mental operations cease, bodily heat or Udana Vayu serves as the only index of life in the body. This was, of course, demonstrated in the life of Sri Ramakrishna. So, Tejo Prashna Upanishad also confirms Brahma Sutras are nothing but cryptic sayings or cryptic sentences taken from the Upanishads. They make it still short so that you can remember. Sutra means brief formulas. So big verses in the Upanishads are compressed and converted into sutras. So Prana Upanishad says, Tejoha va udana. Fire verily is udana. Fire means heat. It functions to the last. It attends on the departing soul. As it finally leaves, not in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, it has not left. The patient still, or you can't say the patient, the sadhaka still has that heat. Heat has not left the body. So that was nowadays death has been defined. It's so much of controversy is going on. What is brain death, or should we consider a person to be dead when he is brain dead or when the heart stops? There's so much of controversy going on, and how long we should keep the body till. Sometimes we have seen even after a few hours the heart can be revived. So it's a very controversial thing even in medical science. People do not know. But here the Upanishad says, that is what they found, that the Udana Vayu is the last to leave the body. So the subtle body, to put it in a nutshell, Sukshma Sharira is the repository, you may say repository of all the subtle forces developed by all the 10 organs and the mind which belong to that subtle body. So as I told you, there are 17 parts, or you may say 17 components of the subtle body which you have to remember, because when we come to the causal body, which is another part of the Sukshma Sharira, that is the subtle body, and then there is a Karana Sharira. To understand the Karana Sharira, you have to understand this Sukshma Sharira. So whatever capacity or whatever capacities or tendencies or possibilities that a human being explores in this life, they good or evil, they may be good, they may be evil. A person, when he acquires these things, they remain in the subtle body as potential forces. They refuse to die. It is the example that Swamiji gives in his Raj Yoga is when on a beach, if you observe, when water comes, when there is a big wave, it creates a certain impression, though the waves recede. But when the water comes again, the impressions will decide how the water will flow. So every time the waves come, they follow the impressions that are created on the sand. That is how he explains. That is what these tendencies are, good or bad. These tendencies are present in the subtle body. So as soon as the person is reborn, the his actions or the possibilities that he explores in that life will depend on the samskaras, the development of the subtle body, in which all these actions have been compressed as potencies. You may say potencies is the only word I can use. It is known as samskara is a better word, but because in English we can't express it anyway. Or you may say the capacity to behave in a particular way. It's a potential thing. The potency of that particular jiva to manifest. It's not that they will manifest it immediately after birth. When they get the right kind of body, when the right kind of body is developed, then slowly that portion of the Sukshma Sharira, which can be expressed through the Sthula Sharira, will slowly express itself. For example, if he has a lot of potential in the previous birth, his physical activity, or maybe he was a great sportsman in his previous birth. So now he needs a strong body. Till he develops a strong body, that Sukshma force will be in potential form. He needs to express that, and to express that, he needs a proper body. So it's not that everything will be expressed when the child is born. It will take time. So he starts exploring, and we also see in a life of a child when he grows up, some people develop in a particular way, some people have different life skills. So that depends on the potencies that he has inherited from a previous life. That is very important. These impressions left on the mind, mind you. It is normally the mind which stores all these things, not the organs. The subtle organs, they are important when the person is alive, but then it is stored in a more subtle form in the mind. So it is something like in a computer, there is a RAM, there is a temporary storage, and there's something known as hard disk which stores in a more permanent way. You can erase the data that is on the outer storage functions, but whatever is stored in a deeper way in the hard disk or whatever it is, that remains for a long time. You can revive it whenever you want. So also the impressions that are left on our sense organs, because the sense organs are no longer there, they may appear to vanish, but those potencies, those tendencies, those impressions left on our mind, the subtle mind, by our actions, not only actions, by our perceptions, by our thoughts. Even the thoughts change the mind. Thoughts are as material as things. They are subtle things, but every thought has a potential action behind it. So thoughts, feelings, desires, so many things, so many aspects of the reactive mind and the sense organs, they all are stored, accumulated in a very latent or a potential form in the subtle body. That is where it is stored. With all these contents, the subtle body attends the soul, that is the jiva, the soul of every person. It is known as jivatma, as it passes out of the gross body. So it's like a covering. These potential latent impressions, they are carried from this birth to the next birth. This, in due course, till the body is born, they determine the individual's journey, the jiva's journey, how long he will be, how long he will remain in a subtle body, till he gets a gross body which can fulfill those impressions, those latent impressions, because he needs a vehicle to express that. So he has to be reborn. That is what Vedanta says. When some of these concrete external forms are available to him to manifest those latent impressions, they are latent, they are potential. But to make it active, you need the hardware. Software may be there, the hard disk may be there, but the impressions also may be there, but you need something to express it, so that they can be taken out and it can work. Shall we close? Yeah. So this that is how we come to the conclusion that the constitution, the present constitution of anyone who is born in this world, are shaped primarily, they are decided primarily by this Sukshma Sharira, not by the parents. As I said, we discussed this topic. How much of our life is nature and how much is nurture? By nature, I mean the potential impressions that we have inherited. So that is our nature. That's not something which we have inherited from our parents. Nurture is what the parents do with our body. When we are born, how we are trained, how our teachers train us, how everybody around us, how the world trains us. So only part of our personality or the possibilities that we explore is because of the external nature. So nature is, you may say 50%, but nurture is 50%, but our own nature contributes the other half. That is what they say. So the subtle forces which are conveyed by the subtle body from a previous incarnation, not one, but many incarnations or many lives, they are all accumulated. And when they find expression, they try to express themselves through the biological body or the biological body that we get from our parents. So the subtle body has also a technical name which is known as the index body. Index means it's a linga sharira. Linga means it has certain tendencies inherent in them, and they are needed because it accepts that the jiva, it accepts the fact that the jiva had several previous incarnations, and also it can give you a rough idea of the future. But of course, we don't see it because our minds are not subtle. Only the incarnations, only the great people. We say that certain people can see the future. It's not a power that which is some kind of magic. It is something which a person who can observe the subtle body or a subtle personality. Sri Ramakrishna was one such. Even Swami Vivekananda was surprised that how could he predict so accurately? And he asked him, he said, do you think I need to think and tell your future? I can see. Means he could literally perceive the subtle impressions. What type of impressions which of his disciples had. And accordingly, he could give him advice. He said, I can see the subtle body or the things that are hidden behind this frame of yours, just as there is a cupboard with glass. In a glass cupboard, you can see the things inside. So that's why Swami Vivekananda was surprised when he heard that I can see through a personality and find out what are those tendencies. That is not possible for everyone. One has to be highly developed or highly evolved, like the avatars, who can not only see the subtle body, but also the causal body. So this will conclude now. If there are some questions, you can ask. Time is over, no? So in the next class, this time we were a bit late. We should have started it exactly at 4. It was almost 4:15. But next time, we have taken 14 minutes anyway. So we almost completed 1 hour. So if there are some questions, you can ask. we'll conclude. The subtle body is not over. How the yeah. Yeah.
Thank you very much for this lecture. In this present life, if we have some issues with particular people, we don't really want to deal with it because we feel like at this present time it's causing more disruption than dealing with it. Should we actually deal with it so it doesn't come back in the next life, or doesn't?
The thing is, it's a good question. So the question that is asked, what's your name?
Lina.
Lina. Lina is asking a question here, whether we have issues not only with people but with circumstances and things around us. So should we deal with it or should we avoid it? Now, that depends on, that's why I said the power we have, which is known as buddhi, helps us to make the choice whether we should react or not. It's not always necessary that you should react. You can react if you think it will solve the problem. You should know when to react, or should you really react. So you cannot give a specific answer. Each specific situation has a specific answer. So we have to, whether you should fight or we should flight. Fight or flight, both are there. In some cases, it's better to avoid. In some cases, it's better to avoid, because if the thing is not going to be solved by human effort, that is why they say when we pray for a right understanding. The Gayatri Mantra, for example, says, "Oh Lord, give me the wisdom to know what is good, what is bad, what I should do." This choice making, as I said, we come down to the same problem, development of the buddhi. So if the buddhi is developed, then maybe your question can be answered. So we have to pray and hope. Spiritual practice is meant for that, for the development of the buddhi, so that we can take appropriate decisions at the right time. The right decision at the right time. Very often, you see, the right decision taken at a wrong time also can be dangerous. Sometimes you need to wait. You need to be persistent. You need to be patient. And sometimes you have to take immediate action. So how to decide this? It is possible only through the development of a faculty which was given importance, which comes through meditation, which comes through spiritual practice, which comes to deeper understanding of the mind. It normally, in a calm mind, the buddhi reflects. You see the reflection of the buddhi, the development of the buddhi more in a calm mind. That is why they say somehow all our exercises, all our spiritual practice is designed, in all religions, is designed to, whether it is prayer, whether it is repetition of the holy name, whether it is doing good work, karma yoga, everything is designed to make the mind calm, less restless, so that the buddhi shines. The buddhi faculty is there in every one of us. So it has to be just cultivated, or you may say not cultivated, it has to be discovered. And the light of buddhi then tells you what to do, what not to do. To be or not to be. Hamlet, that famous Shakespeare said, to be or not to be. That is why he suffered. Hamlet did not know what to do.
Just thinking.
Yeah.
Actually, a short question. We say that at death, the body is left behind and the soul leaves the body. And sometimes we say at death, the subtle body leaves the ghost body.
Yeah, subtle body covering the soul. Soul is something.
The question was, is soul and subtle body exactly the same?
No, they are not. No. There is another layer. Subtle body is just next to the gross body. Is slightly subtler than the gross body. Then we'll come to the next topic, which is Karana Sharira, the causal body. So there are several layers. As I told you, there is this classification into 5 layers according to one Upanishad. But here it is simplified. We have just three aspects of the same personality. So the soul is not independent. It is encased, or maybe it is encased by three. For convenience, it has been considered as three. You can classify it whichever way you like. The stula body, the gross body, the subtle body, and the causal body. We'll discuss. Causal body will take a long time. First, we'll finish the subtle body.
Soul is inside the three.
Not inside. See, physically, soul is something which is a point around which, according to Vedanta, there is only pure consciousness. Souls are something which are perceived because of the limitation imposed by this gross, which they don't give much importance. That's why they say, but most of the other religions, they believe. That's why they say spirit. Why do they call it spirit? Because it's not the body. What that spirit is something which one has to explore. Each religion, but they accept something other than the body. So when you say spiritual, whether it is Jesus or whether it is any other prophet, they will talk of something which is more permanent, which survives the physical body. So whether you say resurrection or we are born into the kingdom of spirit, what is that kingdom of spirit? It's pure consciousness according to Vedanta. So when that consciousness percolates through the gross body, we call it Sthula Sharira. When it percolates through the subtle body, we call it Sukshma Sharira. And when it percolates through the Karana Sharira, which we'll discuss what it is, that is why the person who feels that he is an individual is known as Jiva. Jiva means one who, Jiva is what commonly is known as the soul. So when you say your soul, my soul, so the limitations that have been imposed on my physical body, whatever limitations I have, and the subtle body and the causal body will impact my jiva. The jiva will feel I am a suffering person, I'm a deluded person, or I'm a happy person. So that I which is within, that's why in most of the Vedantic schools, they say if you discover the I, then you will try to understand what it is. Because the other coverings are not allowing you to know your own self, which is Jiva. Yeah.
I was thinking what she asked. Can we say that God or somebody sends signals, when you are in dilemma of fight or flight? Some small signals come like
Yeah,
when you
God
are in a
means,
small
yeah,
problem,
it's
some
from
people are
within only,
talking and you
yes.
feel, oh, this connects,
Yes.
or somebody is randomly chatting and you feel, oh, this is how I should be. Like some
But that
signals.
is, signals might come provided the buddhi or the that faculty is developed and you can catch those signals. Signals may come, they are coming even today. But how much of that signal we listen and we act upon it, that is important. And that the buddhi alone will tell. So that's why they say signals will always come. Sri Ramakrishna himself said that the wind is always blowing, but then you have to raise the sail. So raising the sail is to make yourself receptive to this choice making faculty, which is known as buddhi. So dhiyo yona prachodayata, that means, oh Lord, may my buddhi be sharp enough to understand what I should do and what I should not do. That is the essence of spirituality. Because, in fact, we are not even on the spiritual path if this buddhi is not awakened. If an indiscriminative person who just acts according to the circumstances, there is very little hope for that person. Because circumstances will keep on changing. It's like waiting for the ocean to stop the waves. The waves will never stop. You have to learn how to swim, isn't it? You can't expect the water to be, everyone to be nice, and people will be people. So there will be good people, there will be bad people. Just as the ocean, there will be up and down. They will come, but your spiritual life will enable you to swim, negotiate those waves, isn't it? So that role is played in our human being, according to Vedanta, by the buddhi. So buddhi just helps you to maintain your stability amongst unstable things which will make you unstable. That is the only stability that we have in life. this buddhi. When that buddhi, as I said, as he asked, you may get through other people, you may get signals, but the problem is those signals should be read, or if if one believes in the grace of God or the power of prayer, then he will definitely send us signals. He or our prayers will be answered by the Lord who is within. That is why we always pray to Him, not as someone who is outside, because all external thing will keep on doubting. If somebody comes and tells you, will not believe. But if your heart tells you, then that means your buddhi is speaking. That's why it's better to follow one's own judgment. The heart never makes mistakes. Others will tell you so many things, and then you will again be confused. Should I listen to this person or that person? Isn't it?
Heart or brain,
Huh?
heart or mind. Which one?
Heart means buddhi. I'm not speaking of the physical heart. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.